2025 was an incredible year for RPGs, with smash hits like Expedition 33 and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. 2026 looks even better, with a plethora of different genres, plenty of new worlds to conquer, and some more familiar ones to dive back into. I wanted to make this video to go over all of the RPGs that I will be covering next year, and think are absolute can't miss material. The first game on this list is Fatekeeper, a project that stands out by rejecting the massive open world trend. This is a debut title from Paraglacial, a new studio formed by the core team behind Spellforce 3. They have partnered with THQ Nordic to create this high fantasy first-person action RPG. The game takes place in the Boreal archipelago of Solus, a region defined by dense, vertical design rather than sprawling empty plains of typical Bethesda-likes. You'll explore ancient ruins, volcanic caverns, and forgotten fortresses that have dark history. The developers have avoided procedural generation, opting for a handcrafted world where every enemy placement and trap is deliberate. You traverse these zones with a mysterious talking rat companion who helps provide context to the history of the technocratic society that once ruled here. For gameplay, you play as a druid, not the romanceable bear kind, but rather a battle mage capable of wielding heavy, melee weapons alongside elemental magic. The combat is heavily physics-based, drawing inspiration from Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, kicking enemies off ledges, freezing the floor to make them slip, or using telekinesis to trigger traps against them. Fatekeeper is currently targeting a PC early access launch in early 2026. Next is the Gothic 1 Remake. One of the most requested remakes in RPG history is finally happening, and as someone who was hardly able to walk when it was originally released, I'm pretty excited to dive in for the first time. The Gothic 1 Remake is being developed by Alchimia Interactive, a studio based in Barcelona, specifically formed by THQ Nordic to handle this project. This new team is rebuilding the cult classic from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5, aiming to modernize the experience without losing the soul that made the 2001 original so legendary. The game returns players to the Colony, a penal mining camp on the island of Coronus surrounded by an impenetrable magical barrier. You enter this prison not as a chosen hero, but as a nobody who must survive in a brutal ecosystem controlled by multiple factions that you'll decide how to navigate through. This eventually leads to the magical barrier breaking, the prisoners escaping, and all hell breaking loose. The gameplay has been completely overhauled to remove the clunky controls of the early 2000s, but without becoming a mindless button masher. Alchimia has implemented a modernized directional combat system that rewards patience, timing, and spacing, retaining the difficulty of the original. The Gothic 1 Remake is currently targeting a release in early 2026 for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X. A playable demo is currently available on Steam to demonstrate the new mechanics, confirming that the project is well into production. Next up is Nioh 3. After years of silence, Team Ninja has finally returned to their flagship franchise. While the studio spent the last few years experimenting with Wo Long and Rise of the Ronin, Nioh 3 is a direct return to the hardcore supernatural combat that put them on the map. This sequel is being hailed as the culmination of their action RPG lineage, merging the tight technical combat of the previous games with the larger scale open-ended design they began testing in Ronin. Unlike the mission-based levels of the first two games, Nioh 3 features larger, interconnected zones that you can traverse freely. The story introduces a time travel narrative centered on a young protagonist poised to become shogun, forcing you to jump between different eras. Specifically, the Golden Age Heian era of Japan in the 11th century to the Sengoku period of the 1500s, allowing for a unique mix of different eras. Team Ninja has overhauled the stance system into two distinct battle styles, Samurai and Ninja. The Samurai style retains the classic Nioh feel, heavy, grounded, and focused on parries and ki management, while the Ninja style is entirely new, prioritizing aerial movement, stealth, and speed, more heavily relying on quick hit-and-run tactics. Nioh 3 is officially confirmed for a February 6, 2026 launch on PlayStation 5 and PC via Steam. A final public demo is scheduled to drop on January 29th to give players one last chance to test the new combat styles before the full release. Next we have The Blood of Dawnwalker. This is arguably the most anticipated dark fantasy RPG currently in production. The Blood of Dawnwalker is a debut title from Rebel Wolves, a powerhouse studio founded by the game director of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and backed by Bandai Namco. This team is leveraging their experience with narrative-heavy RPGs to create a sandbox that promises to evolve the genre beyond simple branching dialogue trees. The game transports players to Vale Sangora, a fictional kingdom in the Carpathian Mountains during a reimagined 14th century Europe. The world is reeling from the Black Death, a crisis that has allowed an ancient vampire lineage to step out of the shadows and seize power. Unlike standard open worlds, this setting operates on a 30-day timeline. You play as Cohen, a Dawnwalker, half-human, half-vampire, who has exactly 1 month to save his family. Time in this game is treated as a currency. Exploring the map doesn't advance the clock, but completing quests does, meaning you might have to make some tough decisions on who you want to save during a single playthrough. Cohen's dual nature, which splits combat into 2 distinct styles, based on the day-night cycle. During the day, you fight as a human, using swords and magic, utilizing a directional blocking system. And at night, you transform into a vampire, gaining supernatural agility, the ability to walk on walls, and other vampire powers to tear through enemies. Progression is tied directly to the narrative sandbox philosophy. Instead of grinding for XP to overlevel content, you must strategically choose which quests to pursue, as your inaction on other fronts will have permanent consequences on the world state. The game encourages replayability by design, as the 30-day time limit forces you to commit to specific alliances and paths, locking off others entirely until your next run. The Blood of Dawnwalker is officially scheduled for a 2026 release on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC. If I had to guess, I would personally lean closer towards fall or winter. The next game on this list is Clockwork Revolution. This is the first AAA project from In Exile Entertainment since they were acquired by Microsoft, and it represents a massive leap in scope for the studio. Led by industry veterans Chad Moore and Jason Anderson, the key creative minds behind the legendary steampunk RPG Arcanum. This team is leveraging the budget of Xbox Game Studios to build a first-person action RPG that rivals BioShock Infinite in style, but exceeds it in role-playing depth. The game is set in Avalon, a vibrant, steam-powered Victorian metropolis that appears to be a utopia. However, this golden age is a lie. It has been carefully manicured by the ruthless Lady Ironwood, who uses a time travel device to edit history and keep the wealthy in power, while crushing the working class. You will explore 2 distinct versions of the city, the pristine gilded surface and the grimy industrial slums, discovering that the architecture and atmosphere shift drastically based on your interference with the timeline. Unlike In Exile's previous isometric titles, this is a first-person shooter with heavy RPG elements. You'll wield a mix of modified Victorian firearms and sci-fi gadgets, but your most powerful weapon is the chronometer. This device allows you to alter the game via slowing time, rewinding, and aging your enemies to death. This allows you to fundamentally reshape the world, even going so far as allowing you to travel back in time to rewrite the future. Saving a character in the past might just result in them becoming a powerful ally in the present, or preventing an invention from being created could cause an entire district of the city to devolve from a high-tech wonder into a crumbling ruin. The developers call this visual reactivity, meaning your choices are not just lines of dialogue, and they will actually physically rewrite the map. Clockwork Revolution is currently expected to launch in 2026 for Xbox Series X and PC. While an exact date hasn't been locked in yet, I do anticipate this game to be released in the first half of 2026, which we should know for sure later this month during the Xbox Showcase. Next we have Solasta 2, for the fans of Dungeons & Dragons. This game has taken clear inspiration from its big brother Baldur's Gate 3. Solasta 2 is the direct sequel to Crown of the Magister, developed by the same French studio that built their reputation on the most faithful Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition adaptation in video games. This time, they have upgraded to Unreal Engine 5, allowing for an absolutely massive leap in visual fidelity, while still retaining the grid-based combat of the original. Solasta 2 leaves the badlands of the first title behind and transports players to Nioh, a vibrant new continent filled with varying biomes and dense cities. The story takes place decades after the original game, following a new party of 4 adventurers, specifically the Colwall siblings, who are drawn into a conflict involving Shadwing, a powerful entity threatening the realm. Unlike the more linear Solasta 1, Solasta 2 introduces a fully explorable world map, allowing you to roam freely, discover hidden locations, and choose your path through the campaign non-linearly. It's also important to note that Solasta 2 is one of the first video games to adopt the updated 2024 core rules for D&D. This was a highly controversial move that a lot of people are still hesitant about. But what this means is that it will have updated class features, spells, and mechanics that reflect the modern tabletop experience. You will create a custom party of 4 characters with 12 classes available at launch, and engage in highly vertical tactical combat. Multiplayer will also be a priority from day one. The game supports 4-player co-op, allowing each player to control their own custom character in the party. Solasta 2 has a confirmed early access release date. It will launch into PC early access on March 12th, 2026. It is worth noting they do currently have a demo up on Steam, but this version is so outdated that it really will not reflect the final release whatsoever. Next we have one of my childhood favorites in Fable. This Fable is one of the most significant reboots in gaming history. Fable is being developed by Playground Games, the studio world-renowned for the Forza Horizon series. While this is a massive genre shift for them, moving from racing sims to a high fantasy RPG, they're receiving support from Eidos Montreal to ensure the role-playing mechanics match the visual fidelity. The project is being built on the Forza Tech engine, promising some of the most realistic environments ever seen in the genre. If you've ever played a Forza game, they truly are one of the most beautiful games out there. The game will return players to the fictional land of Albion, but it serves as a complete reboot rather than a direct sequel to the Lionhead era. The tone remains distinctly satirical and British, focusing on the absurdity of fairy tales. The reboot aims to maintain the franchise's signature mix of dark fantasy and slapstick humor. Playground Games has modernized the classic combat triad of melee, magic, and archery. Early gameplay showcases a fluid, weighty system where you can seamlessly switch between heavy sword strikes, fireballs, and precision bow shots. The developers are aiming for a cinematic feel, where interactions like, punting a chicken, feel grounded in the world's physics. The progression will be deeply tied to the series' staple, moral choices. Your reputation precedes you, and your decisions are designed to permanently alter how the citizens of Albion react to you. Whether you choose to be a noble savior or a chaotic villain, the game promises that the world will physically and socially reflect your alignment. The specific details on the morphing mechanics of old are still being kept under wraps. Fable has been pretty off the radar after the extremely poor reception of the original trailer, but if it has any of the same magic that the original trilogy brought, then I am more than excited to explore Albion again. I personally anticipate Fable to release closer to the later half of 2026, and we should have further confirmation during the Xbox showcase in late January. Following the massive success of Rogue Trader, Owlcat Games is doubling down on the grim darkness of the far future in the form of Warhammer 40k Dark Heresy. The studio is now famous for their deep, complex CRPGs like Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, and is adapting the legendary Dark Heresy tabletop system to this game. Unlike their previous title Rogue Trader, which focused on exploration and trade, this project shifts the lens to the streets, shadows, and paranoia of the Imperium. Dark Heresy returns players to the Calixis sector, a region familiar to veterans of the tabletop RPG. You aren't a wealthy ship captain this time, but rather an acolyte of the Inquisition. The scale is intimate and small in scope. Instead of warping between stars to conquer planets, you're navigating the hive cities and industrial slums to root out corruption from within. The atmosphere is described as a grimdark detective story, where the greatest threats aren't always alien armies, but the heretic hiding in plain sight. While it retains the turn-based tactical combat of Rogue Trader, the systems have been refined to fit the street-level conflict you will be involved in. You command a diverse squad that includes sanctioned Xenos like a Kroot Tracker, and a boneheaded ogre. The major new addition to the game is the investigation system. You must collect evidence, interrogate suspects, and physically connect clues to deduce the truth. True to the lore, the game operates on the philosophy that innocence proves nothing. Your choices shift your alignment between Puritan, who follows the rules to the letter, and a radical, who uses chaos to fight against chaos. With the game promising that your accusations can actually condemn innocent NPCs if your deduction is flawed. I have already been playing the game as Warhammer 40k Dark Heresy entered its alpha testing phase already in late 2025, and is targeting a full release in late 2026 on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X. The next game on this list is one that I have already been enjoying immensely as well. No Rest for the Wicked. This is the highly ambitious pivot from Moon Studios, the award-winning team behind the Ori franchise. After spending years perfecting the Metroidvania genre, they are applying their talents to the action RPG genre. Notably, the studio recently became fully independent, purchasing the publishing rights back from Private Division to ensure they have complete creative control over the final product. The game takes place on Isola Sacra, a remote island region being consumed by a plague known as the Pestilence. You play as a Serum, a member of an ancient order of holy warriors, sworn to eradicate this corruption. Unlike most games in the genre that use procedural generation to create endless maps, Moon Studio has hand-painted every texture and placed every tree, creating a world that looks like a living oil painting. While the camera angle looks more like Diablo, the gameplay feels more like Dark Souls. This is not a button-mashing loot fest, it uses a more strategic combat system where every swing has weight, stamina matters, and player skill is crucial. You can't simply overpower and outgear enemies, you will have to outplay them. Progression will go beyond just your character. You are tasked with rebuilding the city of Sacrament, which involves gathering resources to upgrade shops and infrastructure. There is also a robust housing system that lets you buy and decorate your own property. The loot system is unique in that weapons are not just stat sticks, but rather have distinct movesets, allowing for a soft class system where your playstyle is defined mostly by what you hold in your hands. As I mentioned earlier, I have already been enjoying No Rest for the Wicked as it is currently available in early access on PC. The full 1.0 release, which will include the complete story campaign, is targeting a launch in late 2026. This full release will also mark the game's debut on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Now for the final game, I must admit I am cheating a bit. Not only is this highly speculative, but it is also a DLC rather than a game. I am of course referring to a possible Witcher 3 DLC. This has not been confirmed by CDPR, but amongst Polish journalists and financial reports, this seems to be happening. Yes, more than 10 years after the release of Witcher 3, CDPR is likely going to release another DLC for the Wild Hunt. And if it lives up to its predecessors in Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, then this DLC will easily be up to the standards of any full-fledged game. In my opinion, those are two of the greatest DLCs ever made, still to this day. Industry analysts report this project is being handled by an external partner, which is likely fool's theory. The studio currently developing The Witcher 1 Remake, to ensure that the main CDPR team remains focused on The Witcher 4. The expansion is theorized as a narrative bridge intended to connect the end of Geralt's trilogy to the upcoming Witcher 4. While details are scarce, speculation suggests it may focus on Ciri or a late-career Geralt, setting the political stage for the new saga. Unlike the previous Blood and Wine expansion, which traveled to a new region, I anticipate this add-on to repurpose existing zones or open up smaller, previously inaccessible areas of the continent to tell a more focused linear story that leads directly into The Witcher 4, and the beginning of Ciri taking the reins of the franchise. It's speculated that this DLC will be releasing in May, so strap in because you may be returning to Kaer Morhen much earlier than you expected. There are plenty more titles on the horizon, but these are the ones that I personally find the most promising. If you think there is a major RPG missing from this list that deserves attention, then please leave a comment down below. The schedule for 2026 is still evolving, and I want to know what is on your radar. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.